Please give me a second. I just want to share this. Good evening, Mzansi. Today we'll be having one of the most massive episodes ever. And this, remember, will be our first episode. So I'll be bringing you Mr. MT Tabane. And then, as you know, there's the pain coach. So what I do is I do help individuals globally I give them long life tools to gain resilience to pain and therefore live a purposeful life. With that being said, allow me to bring you MT Tabane. Let me just do this so that he can indeed give us massive content today. Tabane. Mr. MT Tabane. TK Kambane. AKG's Kamban. I'm just gonna bring Michael, the ambassador of hope. Wagar technology dia matata. Michael, can you please request to join if you can? And thanks, Gariso. Thank you, Mfan. Michael, can you please request to join if you can? Because I invited him, I don't know what's happening. Okay, with that being said, let me do this. Let me restart this. Oh, you are here. Michael. How's it? Totally nice. Connecting. Totally nice and totally massive. Good evening, Mr. MT Tabane.
Hi, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for having me, brother.
Yeah. So before we start with the introduction, I would really like to do, one of my teachers used to say, do the right things right. And by so saying,
Sure.
I'd like to urge each and every South African not forget to sanitize their hands. It's very important. And then secondly, to wear their mask. Because indeed, it's no longer becoming numbers now, but it's start to become our family members. So I really like to urge each and every one of you to sanitize. And before we start, I would like us to take just a moment of silence, 10 seconds, and then we could start with the show.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So with that being said, Michael, I know you personally. You are
Yes,
my
sir.
brother. You're my leader. You're my mentor.
Sure.
So
Yes,
I like to actually, I hate taking the spotlight from people, because whenever you're introducing somebody, chances are you'll meet just a little elements there and there. So I usually like to say, or give people a platform to introduce themselves. So with that being said, who is MT Tabane, the ambassador of hope?
Sure. Okay, I'm gonna give you like a a 30-second version of who Michael Tabane is.
Please.
So there's a longer version, but I'm gonna give you a short version. So Michael Tabane is this young man who was born in a beautiful village called Pankop. That's where I was born and bred, and then fast forward, and then my life was turned around by a stranger who was very kind, and then he did not know me, but my father was kind to him, and then he became kind to him by introducing me to the University of Pretoria, and then as a result, my life was never the same. And then what I thought to myself was that, okay, I can be that guy to each and every single person on earth. And then I embarked on the journey of improving every person that I met. So now I made the motto of my life to be, the ambassador of hope, to make sure that wherever I am, I inculcate hope. Wherever I am, if you are hopeless, so the idea or the wish it is that I make you be a little bit more hopeful. So I always say that I leave things better than I found them. So that's me.
As I said, I'll be bringing you massive speakers. Thank you, Tabane. That
Sure.
was actually my motto for this year is just simply massive things. So never mind
Yes, sir.
me emphasizing the word massive, because I just want everything to be like that, to be massive. But with that being said, Michael Tabane, we've been together for quite some time in this journey of speaking and mentoring, and I learned a lot from you. Even today, I have my book with me, because most definitely, you see, I have my book. This is my dictionary. So I'm in my diary, pardon. So I'll be writing notes. And with that being said, Tabane, we're sitting here under the topic, remaining hopeful in times of crisis. And the reason why I chose this topic specifically is simply because we live in an era or in a generation or where a lot of people are hopeless in the system, hopeless in the government, hopeless generally in their lives. In a sense that right now I hear a lot of people saying, what's the use of me graduating and being unemployed? What's the use of me going into entrepreneurship or wherever people are not going to buy my products or services? For example, there's been a high market right now in terms of local brands, clothing brand to be specific. And I have this young man or this young lady who wants to go in that field. But right now they are hopeless. So they are scared, firstly, to go in that. Firstly, there's no hope going into that industry because of the system itself. So with that being said, just take us through the journey of yourself, for example, because I'm sitting here wondering, what really did this man do? How does this man that introduced you to University of Pretoria helped you to regain back that hope or to regain back that strength that indeed true, I want each and everyone's life just to be like me. I want to be the change that I want to see, or I want to be that voice of reason to every individual just like they did to me. Just take us through the topic of today, how to remain hopeful in times of crisis.
Sure. Okay, cool. That's you've like you said, a mouthful, my brother. And then I think there are about 3 to 4 questions from the one big question that you've asked. And then you also mentioned the gentleman that I met, or the gentleman that my father met, and then how did he change my life? So he did one thing that no one who was from my village could do, and that was to introduce me to the things that I did not know, to make me see the world that I never knew existed. So the thing is very much difficult or almost impossible to go for things that you do not know about, or that were outside the periphery of your knowledge, or the periphery of the things that you've been exposed to. So he showed me the world that I did not know existed. Then I went to the University of Pretoria. I'm like, oh, is this a university? Is this how it looks like? Are this the lecture halls? But there's this tall buildings, the buildings that one day, if I work hard, I can be, part of, so to say. So he introduced me to the world that I did not know that it existed before. So as a result, what happens now it is that because of I believe that your mind will never rest once it has been introduced to the idea that things can get better. Once you are introduced to the idea that things can get better, your mind does not rest until it achieves that state whereby things are better. So then that's what happened. So then I never rested after the day. Day one at University of Pretoria, I was still doing grade 11 when I was taken to that program. And then after that, then I went home, then I was amped up, then my grades at school improved, so on and so forth, simply because I saw a world that never existed. And then I believe, most importantly, I believe that I could be part of that specific world. So, which leads me to the answer of the main question of today's session of how do we remain hopeful? So, what happens is that when you have a glimpse of what is possible for you, you always work hard on ensuring that you bring that place closer to where you are, because the place of where you want to be is a little bit distant from where you are at the moment, depending on how you have grown and how you have improved as a human being from your personal development standpoint. And then your goal or your hard work is in bringing that place closer to you. That's the whole job. That's one of the reasons why I have my mentorship program. And then somebody asked me, what is your mentorship program and what does it do? And then I said to people that if you cannot explain what you do in less than 15 seconds, it means you don't understand what you're doing. So I'm going to tell you what my mentorship program does in less than 15 seconds. So what my mentorship program does is this. Each and every single person in the world, no matter where you are, no matter how you've grown, no matter your accolades, no matter your position or your titles in life, there's always a place of where you are and then a place of where you want to be. And then the job of my mentorship program is to make sure that the place of where you are and the place of where you want to be are identical as possible. So there's always picture one and picture two. So my job is to make sure we bridge the gap between picture one and picture two. And then that's one of the things that give people hope to know that there is this picture, the thing that is staring at me each and every single day. When I wake up, there is this bed. When I wake up, there's this house that I live in. When I wake up each and every single day, there's this kids that are hungry. There might be my siblings, there might be my own kids. There is this village that I grew up in, and then the kids are in drugs and in alcohol and all of those things. This is a picture of where you are. But once you can find someone who will introduce you to the world that is better than yours, and then you know that there is something in you that can actually bring that distant place or distant future towards you, that actually does give you hope, because of you know that a place called a better place does exist. And then you know that you also have it in you to make it happen, that that place, you can bring it as closer to you as possible. So that's my answer to the questions that you have asked. I hope I answered you.
Most definitely, most definitely. So I heard you and I made some few notes with regards to the answers that you gave. But what I find interesting, or what makes me to be even more curious, was the fact that Fede, there's picture A, there's picture B, right? But obviously it won't be a smooth road between picture A and right.
Never.
So it brings me to this question of how do you sustain the level of hope along the journey? Because chances are, if from point A to point B, let's say I'm moving from Lobahomo to Cape Town, I stuck just at Polokwane, it's like 60 kilometers away. And I'm like, okay, but maybe, I'll get there. Just before Pretoria, I stuck again. Just before Bloemfontein, and up and up and up and up, just like that, up until a point where I am demotivated, I'm hopeless right now, because I have this perception that what maybe I thought was great seems to be disappointing me. What I thought was the point I want to be or the world I want to live in seems to be just a dream. I've been trying and trying and trying and trying, but I'm just not getting it right. How do I then sustain that level of hope to ensure that I move from my point A to point B?
Good question. So there are a number of things like in that, to consider when talking about like sustaining hope, right? Remember, maybe I think it's very important like to to just talk, just for a few seconds about what we think hope is.
Okay.
Because hope, in my honest opinion, my brother, is nothing else. But the idea that the future can be or will be better than the present. The idea that the future can be better than the present. You have this feeling within you, and sometimes hope, it is not backed by factual data that that thing will happen. Sometimes it's on faith. Sometimes it's on a belief that I don't know how, and I don't know the necessary steps that it will take me to get to that place. But sometimes, like, it is that feeling that things can actually get better. So that's more of what hope is. So now your question is, how do you sustain that? How do you get to a point whereby it's disappointment after disappointment, but you're still soldiering on? Where do you get the strength to do that? So there are a number of ways to do that, my brother. There are a number of ways to do that. Way number one, that is a little bit more practical, is to understand that, is to know how the world works. Know how the world works. So what do I mean by know how the world works? Whatever it is that you're pursuing in your life, it be entrepreneurship, it be wanting to be at school, it be wanting to be part of a big corporate and then work there as a professional, and then maybe hopefully you'll become a CEO, whatever the case may be, whatever it is that you are after, right? So know how that world works of the thing that you want to do. Because once you know how that world works, it means you will be able to navigate it. The same way as they will tell you, like most marathon runners, before they actually get onto the 21-kilometer run or whatever the case might be, they'll tell you that they will walk the tracks before. They walk the tracks before, maybe a week before or a few days before, so that they can see how the road is like, with all the slopes and everything. Because they know that when the time for them to actually get on gear and then run that specific race, they know exactly how the tracks look like. And then that is the part and parcels of knowing the world of where you want to play your game at. So understand it, because once you understand it, now a little bit of like you're not going to be as anxious as you were before you understood what you were getting yourself into. So normally when we are getting ourselves into something that we've never experienced before, we are becoming very anxious because we do not know what we are getting ourselves into.
Yeah.
We do not know exactly what it is, this specific thing. Is big? Is it going to happen? Do I have the necessary skills and then the necessary, accolades to actually navigate myself in that specific thing? If you don't know how it works, it is going to kick your butt. And you must at least understand how it works. Before you wrote your book, I know, like we work together. We're like, hey man, what can be the title? Oh, I'm stressed about the cover. I'm stressed about the image that I'm gonna use there. Oh, yeah, like how do I start? I'm like, I'm not a writer, I'm not an author. So let's hook you up with people who are authors, people who have walked the tracks of being authors, and so that you can understand how that world works. So what it does to you is that it gives you information on how to navigate that specific thing. Then it eases your anxiety a little bit. So then now you are in a better position to actually embark that journey, because of you sort of know which place and which rooms to get into, so to say. That's number one, know your world. Number two, the other thing is that there is a likelihood that someone somewhere did what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
There is that likelihood. And then once you know that, so just try to study those people and understand that if it was possible with other people who bleed like you, who have emotions like you, who have mothers, fathers, girlfriends, and brothers, and whatever, just like you, they are normal human beings just like you. And then that alone, it's something that should tell you that, okay, it means I'm not different from these people to a certain extent. Then it means I too can achieve that specific thing. So the only difference between you and people who have achieved the things that you are still trying to achieve now, the only main difference, there might be other difference, but the main difference is that they are a little bit more trained than you are. They've trained their gifts more than you have trained yours. Then as a result, then your gift will only take you a distance that is congruent or synchronous to the level at which you have trained that specific gift. So if I'm a speaker, then the level at which I've trained my speaking capabilities or expertise, the level at which I've trained them will actually, be be reflected on the results that I will produce. So train your gifts train your gifts from the perspective of people who have done the stuff that you're trying to do. That is very important. And then another thing that I would like to mention when coming to sustaining your hope is that you must believe in something that is bigger than you. You must believe in something that is bigger than you. Because if you don't believe in something that is bigger than you, everything that you will be doing will overwhelm you, because of most of the times we are trying to take on tasks that are way bigger than us. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's actually what we have to do. We must take on dreams and goals that are bold, that are bigger than where we are, so that we are the ones who have to rise and grow to being the people who can sustain or achieve those specific goals. But believe in something that is bigger than you. For me, it's God. God is bigger than me, and I believe that He has carried people through in the past, and people who are believers, and then I've seen them achieving things. So giving you an example, there's this book that I'm reading. I don't know if people know about it. It's a book by Phil Knight. It's called The Shoe Dog. This is the guy who created the Nike brand, right? Phil Knight. He created the the Nike brand. So there is something very important that I got from this book. He said that before he started actually opening his Nike shoe brand, he asked his father, he said, Dad, I want to embark on a journey. What journey is this? He said, I want to travel the world, but most importantly, I want to go to the most religious places so that I can learn about God before I could actually start my brand, or my shoe brand. And then he did that because he did believe that once he can find his place in God, once he can assure himself the fact that he's loved by a force that has created all these magnificent things that we see in the world, once he can believe that he's been backed by that kind of love or that kind of force, then he can create and be anything that he wants to be. So that for me is very big, to believe in something that is bigger than you, because of when your dream starts to choke you, and then when your plans are not working out, when there's a disappointment after disappointment, then you know that there is a force that is bigger than you that will carry you through that specific thing. And then that for me is quite a big thing. So those three things that I mentioned, number one, know your world. Number two, I said that, what did I say number two was? I said number two, you
know
must.
That somebody
Yeah,
did it
exactly.
before. Yeah.
Before you, exactly. That give you context on how you can navigate it yourself. And number three, I said that believe in something that is bigger than you. That will really give you hope. Lastly, the last one is very important to me, but it's very much linked to the third one that I mentioned, is that my, my brother, you have to know yourself. You have to know who you are. If you do not know who you are, and then who you are, I don't necessarily mean that you have to know who you are, from a detailed, specifics per se, but on a bigger picture, who you are. Now, for me, I am a child of God, and God will ensure that every dream that I present to Him, He helps me make it possible. For me, that's big. That's something that will always give me hope, because I believe that there is nothing that is bigger than Him. So then, as a result, then I am back on that journey, and then I give my whole self into that, knowing that He has my back. So yeah. So those are the 4 points that I would like to make, that I would say are the things that will help you to sustain your hope. And the last part that I mentioned of knowing yourself, what I like about it is that it will help you know that you have the potential to overcome everything that you do. And then that on its own, if you can skip all the steps that I made and then believe that you have the potential to turn things around, then there is no way you will be hopeless.
Okay. No, thank you very much. I think that was very insightful. And for me, it's so amazing how you're able to line them down into being 4 points that firstly are clear, understandable, but most importantly, they are easy to implement. For example, I usually say to people, the aim of this show is 3 things. Firstly, to inspire, to educate, and to network. So those are the 3 pillars of this show. Talk it all out. So not necessarily my last question, but I think on the issue of hope, it might be, I'm not sure, it might be the last one. So, Mr. Tabane, we are currently facing an uncertain reality.
Yes, sir.
To some, I think the phrase or the right phrase, they say it's our new reality. This is the new world that we live in, that we have to sanitize regularly. We have to always be wearing masks, So we live in that unpredictable era. And our dreams for 2020, some of us, I think some of the audience, including myself, really never materialized the way we wanted them to materialize. 2021, second wave hit us very hard. We had dreams, we had ambitions, but how things are going is not how we actually planned things. So in this type of an era, what can you say for that one person who say, you know what, Tabane, I'm sitting here, I'm unemployed, for example. I've been trying to apply jobs, but companies, instead of hiring, they are retrenching. Okay, I've tried to hustle, but I cannot because of the restrictions that exist within society, that I cannot maybe be in an environment where maybe I have to host events. I have to be in an environment where maybe in my kind of planning, people maybe might not even need to wear mask in those kind of occasions. But apparently, it's a must to wear mask in public places. So we have that one somebody who is sitting there and being like, but Tabane, I feel like I have lost hope, I have lost strength. What can you say to that one somebody who is say, like, according to how things are going, I just don't know what to do anymore?
Sure. Yeah, that's a very that's a very tough question. That's a very tough question. So, and I'll tell you why I'm saying it's tough, because sometimes we people who like to build others, who like to give people advices and stuff, sometimes we say things in a very insensitive manner, so I'm trying my level best not to be insensitive, in a sense that what people are feeling is actually real. It's real to them, if you don't have a job and then your kids are hungry and then you can't find a job, or you're running a business and then no money's coming in, you're not signing up any customers and stuff like that. Those things are real. You are feeling that pain, like for real. So before I make my comment, I'd like to make the disclaimer to say that I'm not trying to be insensitive to what you're going through, because what you're going through is something that you're feeling. And then it's very much difficult for people to actually start to be creative around how they can navigate things, simply like when things are going south all the time. In the midst of the storm, it's difficult for a lot of people to be creative. However, one thing that I would like to mention to people is that when a calamity or when chaos strikes, it starts by attacking one important thing, the very thing that you need to survive that chaos, which is your peace. Which is your peace. Because of when you are not at peace with yourself, with how things are, I can promise you now that you will not have the muscles or the strength to be creative on how you can get yourself out of that situation. So the very first thing that I would advise you to do if you are in that position is that, how can you be at peace again? Because of that's where you get yourself on the state whereby you are creative and then you are full of ideas that can get you out of the place that you find yourself in. Because of there is a certain space or place where we cannot invent, or where we cannot create, or where we cannot build and produce the magic that we can produce. When we are at that lower vibrational frequency kind of places. And then that's where we should not be. We need to be in the places whereby we are ready to incite ideas that will get us out of our situations, or that will pull us towards the future that we want. We need to get to that place. And the first thing we do is to maintain our peace, to get our peace. And then sometimes the thing that makes you not to be at peace is denial of the truth. You must accept the truth. You must see the truth as it is, the world, like things as they are, not as you wish they were. Because of if you are seeing things as you wish they were, what happens now it is that you will fail to employ necessary tools and instruments that are within you or whatever, like in your environment, whatever the case might be. You will fail to employ them to get you to a place whereby you come up with solutions because of you are not willing to have, or you don't have the courage to look at things as they are and to accept the truth as it is and then find out how you can get out of it. So I don't like this idea of what I call negative positivity. And negative positivity is, or it's when we ignore facts as they present themselves, and that's not the whole
Yeah.
idea. God does not want us, I believe, God does not want us to ignore the facts as they are, but He wants us to accept the facts as they are. But most importantly, realize that we have the power to turn them around and change them. A fact is not truth. Fact is not truth. Fact
Yeah.
is it's incidents as they present themselves. But truth is something a little bit different. Truth is
You can't
what you
change.
define it to be. You can't change. You know what I mean? Truth and fact
Yeah.
are different. So what I'm saying to you now it is that be at peace. And how do you be at peace? Accept things as they are. Don't ignore them as they are. Because of you ignoring them as they are, it means you are driving yourself away from coming up with a solution that will actually be the answer for you and then for many people. So when we have COVID, doctors don't go like, no, there's no COVID, there's no such a thing, and then they pretend as if it's not there. They acknowledge that it is there, and then they go like, how can we come about it? How can we go about it? What are the solutions? Let's go to the labs and then find out how we can fight this specific thing. And then that's the approach that I believe we need to take about our lives, to say that, yes, I'm not working, it's true. I'm not working. It's true. I've been sending CVs and things are not working out. It's true. I'm an events guy. I'm running an events business, and then events are not happening anymore because of things have closed down. That is true. So what is it that I can do? What is it that I can do? And now you start to think of, okay, you think of whatever creative ways to get yourself out of it. So be at peace, and that's one of the things that will actually help you get there. And then lastly, I employ people not to be disappointed by the idea of certain targets because of they think they will miss them. It's one thing to fail at something that you know about, and it's another to feel like a failure, but you do not know what you have failed at.
Yeah.
Those two things are very different. And then I believe that once we get to a point whereby we set clear targets, this is what I want. Be very clear of what you want. One of the biggest things that we fail at is to actually be clear on what we want. We are very good at telling the world about what we don't want. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be broke. I don't want to. You are telling us what you don't want, and then you are inviting the very energy that is actually congruent or synchronous to the very thing that you don't want. That's the kind of energy you're inviting. If you say, I don't want to be broke, you're inviting poverty in your life by just doing that, by virtue of doing that. So you need to start saying the things that you want. Say what you want and be clear about it. I always say that complexity is the enemy of execution. Be clear of what you want. Make sure that that goal is not complex. By not complex, I mean like you can easily define what is it that you want. And then I promise you, before you know it, the universe will actually work itself out. Make sure that they make your goal happen. When you wrote your book, a very good example. I know how many sleepless nights we had. We are moving from from authoring house. Certain people not treating us well, you and I, and then we had to lose money in the process. We had to lose so many things in the process. Like, it was tough writing your book, but we were like, you know what, Mike, my book is coming out before the end of the year. I don't care what I'm gonna do. I don't care. And that's the kind of relentlessness that I'm talking about. You didn't have the funds, you didn't have the monies per se. You just had some people who were supporting you, but not everybody was supporting you. And then things were just going south. And then, but we're like, I promise you, before the end of this year, my book is coming out. And it came out. And that's what I'm talking about.
You reminded me of two things.
Sure.
The first one, if you look clearly, you'll see that there's my book. right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then in that book, I think is chapter types of storms in chapter 8. Yeah, in chapter 8,
Mm-hmm.
where it talks
Mm-hmm.
about
Mm-hmm.
different types of storms and the sole purpose of storms, right? And just to quote few, is a building storm. A building storm is one storm that happens or affects you with an
Mm-hmm.
intention, right? So you face that storm, just like you were giving examples. I was facing storms, but those storms were building
Yes.
storms because those storms were meant for
Yes.
me to prosper. They were not meant for
Mm,
me
mm.
to, they were not meant to destroy me. So it's also again to
True.
review the storms that we face in daily basis. And secondly, I also quoted this in that storm chapter where I was talking about I think is in one of the four gospels where uh, they were in a river, I think, if not a dam or whatever the case might be, and it was starting to become unsettled. The boat, or so whatsoever, I cannot remember the story clearly, but what I remember was that they called on Jesus, and Jesus said, "You people of little faith." I think you
Faith,
remember the
yes.
story. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for
So
sure.
what happens is a lot of times we go through different storms for us to see Jesus in those storms. But because
Mm,
we are
mm, mm, mm.
people, flesh or human nature, we choose to see things otherwise. We start to question the credibility or even to an extent of questioning the existence of God Himself. Because simply the storm that we
True, true.
don't even try to look at it from a perspective of what is it that this storm is trying to teach me. So yeah, I just
Mm-hmm,
wanted to put
mm-hmm.
that 2 minutes just to add on
That's a
what you
good
were
one.
saying.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Besides that, recently what I've realized is that you've been doing in and out of platforms, talking about goal setting. And I found one killer tool
Yeah.
that at some point you mentioned. And I'm interested in knowing what exactly is this. You mentioned the winning formula.
Mm-hmm.
I was asking myself, in terms of goal setting, what is that winning formula? That perhaps
Hmm.
even after this session, people might implement through
Mm-hmm.
their journey to ensure that not only are they becoming hopeful, but they're also becoming productive in their daily basis in terms of goal setting.
Sure. So the winning formula is a little bit like a little bit complex, but not too difficult, so to say. But a little bit complex. And then I'll mention what I mean by a little bit complex. So actually leave the complexity of it. Let me explain the winning formula the way I understand it. In terms of how I teach my mentees on how to do goal setting. Number one is that one of the winning formulas, one of the ingredients of the winning formula is clarity of intent. Clarity of
Mm.
intent. What is it that I want? What is it that I want? Be clear about what you want. When you are very clear about what you want, people who are doing things like NLP, they will tell you that when a mind is very clear on the target that it's after, it will find ways to get there. Whether you like it or not, like it will always find ways to get there when the mind is convinced about a specific target. So clarity of intent is number one of the ingredients of the winning formula. Number two, understanding it being a wish and a goal. A difference between a wish and a goal. Those things are
Mm.
not the same. A wish and a goal are not the same thing. So you need to understand how can you, convert your wishes into goals. So there are a number of models whereby you can test if what you say are your goals are actually wishes and not goals. You know what I mean? You need to know if it's a wish or if it's a goal. Because if it's a wish, I promise you, you will never do the necessary steps that are required to achieve that specific goal if it's just a wish. And how do you know it's a wish and how do you know it's a goal? 5 simple steps. I love this model. There are a number of models that you can use, but I love the SMART model. It's called the SMART model. SMART is in SMART. So how it's spelled. So number one is that something is a goal. You know that something is not a wish, it's a goal. When it is specific, that's number one. When it is specific, that's the clarity I was talking about. Number two, when it's measurable, you can measure it. You know that, okay, I'm trying to lose 15 kg this year, and then you'll know how to measure yourself per week, per month, whatever the frequency of measurements you wanna apply there. Number three is that it must be attainable. What do I mean by attainable? I mean that you can almost always know the necessary steps that it will take you to achieve that thing. Attainability, it talks about the planning of that specific goal. How you're going to go about it, who you're going to talk to, what institutions you're going to consult with, what books are you going to read, what skills are you going to acquire, all of those specific things. What skill sets do you need to make that thing a reality? You know what I mean? So when you are writing your book, you know that you cannot write a book if you can't necessarily read per se. If you're going to write it yourself, unless someone's going to write it for you. You know, you have to read certain things. You know, you have to talk to certain people who have written books before. So that was in your planning. So it was attainable for you. You could almost always see it. That's why when you told me that, and it was somewhere in October, you were like, the year is not going to end, and it's not going to end until my book is written. My book is going to be written. And I'm like, this boy is left with a few weeks, and then he's so adamant that he will have his book written. And then it was like that. It happened. Why? Because of it was attainable for you in a sense that you could almost always see it or feel it because of you knew what it will take you to actually do it. You know? And then attainability, that's another one. The fourth one is relevant. It must be relevant. The goal must be relevant. What do I mean by that? It must be meaningful to you. Stop setting goals that are not important to you. Stop setting goals that are not important to you because you're not going to do what it is required for you to get it. Don't set goals that are not important to you. They must be very important. Important to you. And how do you know a goal is important to you? It's important to you when it talks to your very addresses your value. I like one example that one of my teachers, distant teachers, I call him a distant teacher, Dr. John DeMartini, he said that, you know, if you are advising a 13-year-old boy to brush his teeth every day, and then he seems not to want to brush his teeth, you'll find out that if he sees a girl that he wants to kiss, he will brush his teeth every day because of he wants to make sure that he's ready when that opportunity to kiss that girl comes. You know, so he was making that example to say to you that when the motivation to do something is that big, or it talks to your value, to something that is important to you, that you want to see happening, that goal is something that you're going to do each and every single day. It's very much impossible for people to maintain the discipline that is needed, or to have the commitment that is needed to achieve their goals when their goals are not important to them. Because of it's tough. Yeah. It's really, really tough, guys. You wake up every morning. I see with my mentees, like some of them, they give up halfway. They're like, I can't do this thing. It's tough. I don't want to do this. I don't think I can do this because of it's tough. It's not easy. That's why very few people are successful, and then a lot are not, you know? So relevant, that's what I meant. The last one, it must be time bound. That's the T. It must be time bound. So you must set certain timelines, you know, have certain milestones, have certain little things that you're going to be doing each and every single day as the signatures of your progress. Because of progress makes you happy. When you see that there's progress, you are actually more enthused, you know what I mean, to actually push further and further and further and further. It's difficult to maintain that hope, to be hopeful throughout your journey when you do not see progress. And progress is not always reflected in results. No, not always. Sometimes progress is reflected in the disciplines and the commitments or the habits that you promised yourself you're going to inculcate in your life, you know? Progress can be that I'm no longer waking up at 8, I always wake up at 5. Progress can be I'm no longer lazy to read a book, you know, I read every 2 hours a day. That can be progress. Yes, the results might not be reflecting yet, but I promise you, once the behavior is rooted and is actually, you know, consistent, the results will have no choice but to catch up with the behavior. The results have no choice but to catch up with the behavior. So check your behavior as one of the elements of progress, so to say. So yeah, I mentioned that if you can tick all these 5 boxes, I mentioned specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, yeah,
right.
and then time bound. If you can tick those, then it's not a wish, then it's a goal. So that was the winning formula to say that make sure that your goals your goals are not what? Are not wishes, are what? Are actually goals. And how do you know they're goals? If they tick those 5 boxes I mentioned.
You know what? One thing that I like right now, or that actually makes me happy, is the fact that
Yes, sir.
you continue to be in my year resolution, massive content. Thank you very much with that. So I picked up a lot of things from yourself right now as I was just doing my notes. And then my last question would be, is hope measurable? Like, is there anything such as I'm hopeful enough? Or maybe I was not hopeful enough. Is it something that you could measure to say, yeah, now I know what's working great, go on? Or is something that you cannot measure? Because I'm sitting here wondering, okay, let's say that we have one audience who's being like, yeah, but I've been hearing you guys, but then I was hopeful, I thought things will work out, but is it something perhaps that you could measure or not?
Measure, I'm not sure, but judging, but gauging and then checking its presence, yes, is something that you can see whether you have it or you don't. Measure, like as in, like you can put it on a scale to say, yeah, this is my hopeful measurement. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. But what I'm sure of is that you can know when you are not hopeful or when you are hopeful. And how do you see that? You see by the way you live your life, by the way you execute, by the way you engage with the challenges of life, by the way every morning you wake up, and then the energy that you put into the things that you do. They will tell us that this person is very hopeful about where he's heading. But you can tell when a person is not hopeful because of they're very lethargic. They do not inculcate the necessary energy that is needed for them to execute the things that they have to execute on. So you can always know when you are hopeful or when you're not. I'm not sure about the measurement part.
Okay, just to add, because I've been, my mind is, but I wanted to add on the issue of productivity, just to share my in terms of how do I continue being productive, right? So my secret, and actually, this secret is worth millions and millions, but anyway, I'll share with you guys. So my secret is, after each and every achievement, I add a reward. Why do I do that?
That's beautiful.
I've realized that sometimes whenever we face challenges in life, we become too hard on ourselves simply because we don't appreciate it enough. And sometimes we go out looking for things that are within ourselves. So you go out looking for love because you don't take the necessary energy or the necessary efforts to appreciate and love yourself. So therefore, you will think you need an external source to show you the things that are within you, right? So for example, when was it? Was it December? Yeah, on December. Towards Kabudi 23, I think. I actually being like, okay, I looked at my finances. I was like, yo, Mali, you're not that good. But either way, if it's you, you need to spend some cash on yourself. I actually went to a restaurant. I went to a restaurant. I ordered everything that I wanted to eat, like everything, right? I did not care about the budget. I ordered everything that I wanted to eat. And I called one of my, because if I can take money to invest in something or to invest in somebody, but I'm not taking that same effort to invest in myself, you understand? So a lot of times we take out what we don't take in. You understand? So I use these incentives and initiatives to appreciate myself. I mean, it cannot go a month and you realize that, oh, flip, actually I spend more than 10,000 rand. But you go like, but what have I done for myself? And there's nothing, you know. So we need to be in a habit of also appreciating ourselves. And I mean this in a sense that if I go with you, Tabane, I will highlight and emphasize that, Tabane, please join me for lunch. But just know that we're celebrating me.
Sure, exactly. I love that.
It's very important. No, I can go with you, fine, but just know that we're celebrating me. Why is that? Because it's time and high time we need to appreciate ourselves enough so that we don't even undermine our effort. I mean, after this show, tomorrow I'm going to do something massive for myself. It does not matter how small it is. If it means buying myself airtime, I'm going to do that. Or even if it means buying myself food.
It's massive for you.
Yeah, it's little things that count. Because for the mere fact that I've done something for me, and that means a lot, you know. So what I do, or what I add to my goal setting classes, is that put a goal, put effort or steps, and put rewards. So that after each and every goal, we celebrate. Even the people that are within my circle, they will tell you, we always celebrate. Why are we celebrating? We're celebrating ourselves while we still can. We're celebrating ourselves that even if the society does not see what we're doing, or even if people don't see what we're doing, but you see what you're doing, you appreciate what you're doing, you love what you're doing. You understand? So the secret that is worth millions and millions and millions, not of rands, of dollars. So with that being said, I would just like to hear from you your last words. Your last words. But before I do that, let me check, because I've because I've only the comments and that there's been a lot of engagement.
There are a lot of people who've been commenting, and then but most of them, they are actually being very appreciative of the content that we've been sharing tonight. I have not seen a question per se, and some of them were paraphrasing us on some of the words that we've been saying. And our mutual friend and awesome brother of mine, Matome Mutlawutsi, has been commenting like throughout the entire show, which is quite amazing. Thank you guys for actually this amazing comments. Much appreciated.
Then it means Matome Mutlawutsi deserves the best. Sandor Omar, reward. Either way, Matome, from myself
no,
to
for sure.
go take yourself out on lunch alone. Okay. Celebrate yourself, brother.
Sure.
Yeah, your last words.
No, I agree that. My last words are very simple. So my parting words is that when you improve, the things that you do improve. When you grow, the things that you do grow. So a permanent antidote or cure to feeling the feelings of despair, pain, and whatnot, a permanent antidote to that is constant work on ourselves. When we improve, guys, things that we do improve. When we improve, every touch, it will show that has been improved. So please work constantly on yourself, because of when you work constantly on yourself, the extent at which you do things will show us that this person has been working on him or herself. Everything that you build, that you create, is nothing else but an extension of how further you've grown. So work on yourself. Cheers.
Work on what? Myself. So that means massive everything for me. But
yeah, sure. Exactly. Sure.
My parting words would be that, firstly, as you're saying, work on yourself. I like to rephrase it by saying invest in yourself. In a sense that you should know that the world is not complete without you. And I would like to expose. You remember we had a conversation just before this, and I told you this, that for the mere fact that if the world's population is 1 million rand, and if I die, the number will change to 9,999. that means I
Yeah,
have so
yeah,
much
sure.
impact on the entire world. I mean, who changes the world's
I love
population?
that.
You understand? So that is the
I
first one.
love
The
it.
second one,
I love that.
the second one is, guys, please be safe. My question for tonight, I think I'll always try my best to pose on a question to introspect on. What will it take you to forgive somebody who hurt you? And what will you lose by actually forgiving those people? And why am I posing this question to you? Is that we live in an unpredictable era right now. We've been holding grudges for so long to certain individuals. And right now, because the world is so unpredictable, you will never know what tomorrow brings. You will never know how things will unfold tomorrow or in the future going forward. So please make peace with everybody everybody around you. Please love yourself. Love those
Yes,
around
yes.
you. Forgive. Be at peace. You remember that you mentioned peace? Be at peace so that we can become productive. With that being said, I love you guys. I enjoyed the show.
Cheers, guys.
Hopefully, I was able to ensure that this was a very massive, massive, massive show. No, thank you, Tabane. Is indeed, I mean, it means a lot that you actually agreed to this call. And then enjoy the rest of your night. And let's continue talking.
Thank you so much.